So you're looking to become a millionaire in 2025. Honestly, ask yourself, who isn't? But the question is, how are you going to get there going into next year? And in today's video, we're going to be looking at the advice of Ramit Sethi and breaking this down into 4 simple numbers that are super important. Now, if you know him, he is the author of I Will Teach You to Be Rich, really exploring the numbers and understanding very in depth how to get it done going into 2025. Our first one is fixed costs. When it comes to fixed costs, he said it should be average 50 to 60% of your take-home pay. Now, if you think of the 50-30-20 rule or the budgeting methodology, it seems like the fixed costs are continuing to get a little bit higher, getting over that 50% mark. But the higher they get, the more difficult it's going to be to really save money, repay debt, generate wealth, anything you want to, and anything you want to invest in. Unfortunately, when you start getting north of 50% on those fixed expenses, you really get into a bind. When we start thinking of fixed costs, you're looking at your rent or your mortgage, your utilities, transportation. This includes your car payment, insurance, your gas, your groceries, debt, and your subscriptions. This is a time when you add up all your fixed costs. So you should really put another additional 15% on that number because it's not going to capture all of your fixed costs and the expenses that you have. Now, the big thing with this is you can pinpoint exactly where you're overspending, and you can pinpoint those stress points that you can eliminate or free up some of the budget, which makes a big difference. If you're running north of 50% towards 55, 60%, you are definitely going to have to cut something out of the budget. Might mean looking at a cheaper rent, refinancing a mortgage, could be looking at a cheaper auto, getting a better rate. There's a lot of different ways shopping for insurance. Really, groceries are a big place you can definitely eliminate some. Also, when it comes to debt, when it comes to bad debt, credit card debt, it is absorbent and it is super expensive to have bad debt out there. And of course, subscription services. How many of those haven't you used and how many of those can you cut out in their entirety? Looking at our second one, long-term investing. So when we think of long-term investing, we are talking 5+ years. I don't want to see anyone investing for 6 months, 8 months, for 2 weeks. I see a lot of things, especially when it comes to investing. And when it comes to cryptocurrency, that people are in it, they'll lose a little bit of money, they'll pull everything out. That is not the way to look at investing. When you start looking at short-term gains, when you start looking at anything, we are talking real wealth is created and accumulated through long-term investing. Now, Ramit here says putting at least 10% of your take-home pay away into an investment vehicle. This could be your 401k plans. This could be your IRAs, anything, even if it is post-tax, if it's pre-tax, making sure 10% is your minimum that you're trying to get to. Now, the ultimate goal when it comes to long-term investing is looking at least 15% long-term. When you start getting those fixed expenses under control, when you start getting a little bit of that debt paid down, it is going to free up money that you can put. So he advises putting 5% of the salary into a 401k and 5% into a Roth, and then upping it 1% every year on your annual raise, which I definitely agree to. This is exactly how I did get to that 15% in my 401k. Is every single year I started out at 10, then I moved to 11, I got a 3% raise, 1% more in there, so I only got a 2% raise. But guess what? The compounding effect that I've seen in my portfolio is absolutely game changing. Making sure as you don't, and as your income increases, that you're not taking on more fixed costs. You're not buying a more expensive home. You're not buying a more expensive car. You want to make sure that the investment part is covered in the second step. Third one we look at is a savings goal and making sure you have a goal. Majority of millionaires, short of hitting the lotto, do not get rich and do not get famous overnight. It takes time, it takes savings. Even thinking of 401k contributions, a majority of 401k millionaires are first generation. Over 90% of first generation millionaires are from regularly investing. And when we start thinking of our savings goal, 5 to 10% of your take home pay, this is of course money that is going to be used in the short term. When we talk about that long-term investing, we are looking at 5+ years. With the savings goal, this is of course going to include that emergency fund that's going to be in there, but we are looking money that is going to be shorter term. We're talking 1 to 5. So it is going to be the shorter terminology or the shorter really runway with the money that is in there. Now, this is going to be used for down payment for a house, engagement ring, going on trips, weddings, vacations. Everything is going to be built into the savings category. And it's also going to contain that emergency fund within there. And if anything should happen, if there's a death in the family, if there's a job loss, if there's any unexpected expenses that come out of nowhere, you're going to be able to cover everything for an extended amount of time. You want to make sure, this is the point, if anything should happen, that you're starting to cut out a lot of those fixed costs and those variable expenses in the short term, as long as you can get everything under control. Now, of course, the 3 to 6 months is a general guidance when it comes to that emergency fund, really depending on the kind of life you have and the kind of job you have. I always kind of lean to this. If you're in a job that is very stable, that you're in, a good market, which I know nowadays anything could change, but if you have a good job in a good market that is pretty low risk, keeping 3 to 4 months is good. If you're in anything that is sales orientated, I recommend 6 months of savings in there. If you're in a job that could be hazardous, could be a high risk, could be something where something detrimental could happen, lean more towards that 5 or 6 month of that emergency fund. It makes a big difference. If you don't have enough money to put into savings, this might have to really look at your spending habits and really cut back on some of those expenses that we talked about earlier. And the last one in here, and this is probably one of the biggest ones that people really do overlook when it comes to building wealth, when it comes to really saving, and when it comes to spending. He talks about guilt-free spending. Now, this is something that is very clear when it comes to the numbers. Money is meant to be spent, not hoarded. Now, this means you are going to enjoy your life. This is the reason why when it comes to retirement, what kind of retirement makes a big difference between having 1 million or needing $5 million. It is going to be super important to know that you can spend some of your money without the anxiety of really going bankrupt and you're not losing anything. The point of money is not to simply save it, but getting to the point of generating additional money so you can live your rich life. And that is kind of what he refers to. Should you save money? Yes. Should you invest it? Yes. Should you spend it? Absolutely. After you pay your bills, after you invest, after you're saving money, then you have a bucket of money essentially that are things you want to live life, guys. It's not meant to work 40 hours a week, 50, 60 hours a week for 45 years to enjoy retirement. Once you finally get to retirement, you don't want to spend any money because there is a fear that comes along with it, meaning that you're going to run out of money during retirement. You're not going to have enough money. When you get to the point of being healthy and kind of set, once you're filling all of those buckets, take time to enjoy life, enjoy it with your family, enjoy it with your friends, do whatever you need to. So a good guideline here, 20 to 30% of the take-home pay is for guilt-free spending. That is a lot of money when you think about restaurants, bars, taxis, vacation, clothing, whatever you want to. It is about the numbers and about living your life. So when you look at fixed costs, 50 to 60%, we're putting that 10% in investments. We're putting 5 to 10% into the savings account. So even looking there, when you're building it out, you'll have a pretty healthy amount of that guilt-free spending that he talks about to really make a big difference. Now, overall, some of the advice that he provides, I think is really on par. I've seen his show on Netflix for Ramit Sethi, and it's really interesting to see. Some of it does go to kind of the extreme with some of it, but I think honestly, when you look at Dave Ramsey, when you look at him, when you look at a lot of the financial gurus, it really does make a big difference when you sit down and really looking through it. It's very similar when it comes to things you need to do. Fixed costs, that means, making sure you know exactly what your expenses are, knowing exactly what your budget looks like, making sure you're investing, making sure your savings, you have that emergency fund, and then of course, spending time and enjoying your life with the money that you earn. All right, guys, so that is going to do it for today's video. Let me know in the comments what you guys think. And as always, thank you guys for watching.